Amsterdam, the 12th of June, 1942. A small apartment stands quietly on the Merwedeplein. Inside, a girl named Anne Frank wakes to the soft hum of the city. It is her 13th birthday. The war has already reached the Netherlands, but to her, this morning feels ordinary, filled with the gentle excitement that only birthdays can bring. She sits at the breakfast table with her parents, Otto and Edith, and her older sister Margot. There are no lavish presents, no shining ribbons, but there is love. Her father, gentle and thoughtful, hands her a small rectangular package. When she unwraps it, she finds a red and white checkered diary. Its cover is firm, its pages blank and waiting. Anne smiles the quick, bright smile that will later be remembered in photographs across the world. She opens the diary carefully and writes her first words. They are not just words of habit, they are words of invitation. She decides that her diary should not be a cold book of paper, but a friend. She gives that friend a name, Kitty. From the very first line, Anne writes as though she is speaking to someone real. She tells Kitty about her life, her school, her classmates, the little annoyances of her teachers, her friendships, and her secret crush on a boy named Peter Schiff. She writes with the rhythm of a girl who has not yet learned to censor herself, whose thoughts flow like conversation. Her laughter still rings in the hallways of her school, and her imagination still roams freely. But between these lines of childhood, shadows begin to appear. Anne records that Jews may no longer ride bicycles, go to swimming pools, or visit parks. Jewish children must attend separate schools. At first, these are inconveniences, later, they become walls. Each new restriction shrinks her world by another step. Still, she refuses to give up her optimism. She writes, "We can no longer do this or that, but life goes on." To Anne, the world remains large within her imagination, even as it grows smaller outside her window. Her father, Otto Frank, works quietly to keep his family safe. He senses what is coming long before others do. A thoughtful man of calm voice and great patience, he spends nights planning for a time when they might need to disappear. He gathers maps, lists, and supplies. But he never speaks of fear in front of Anne. To her, he remains the steady lighthouse in a storm she cannot yet see. The diary becomes her refuge. Each night she writes by the faint glow of a lamp, the pencil scratching softly against paper. She tells Kitty about her sister Margot, serious and kind, and about her mother, whose gentle authority Anne sometimes resents. She confides her dreams of becoming a writer, or perhaps an actress. She wants to see the world, to be remembered, to live a life of meaning. In her words there is both innocence and hunger for life, a rare mixture that makes her voice unforgettable. The diary listens patiently as Anne describes the growing unease around her. Air raid sirens begin to wail across Amsterdam at night. News trickles in from the radio, battles, invasions, arrests. Neighbors whisper about families who have vanished. Still, Anne writes with hope. The diary, she believes, will be her companion until the war ends, when she can look back on all this and laugh. But in the summer of 1942, a single letter arrives that will change everything. It is not addressed to Anne. It is for her sister, Margot. The letter is a call-up notice from the Nazi authorities, ordering Margot to report to a so-called labor camp in Germany. The family knows what that means. They have heard rumors, they have seen the trucks, they understand that labor is only a word. That night, Otto Frank tells his family that they can no longer wait. The secret plan he has been preparing for months must now become reality. They will go into hiding. Anne is startled but obedient. She packs her school bag, not with books, but with clothes, a toothbrush, and her diary. They cannot carry suitcases, that would look suspicious. She wears layers of clothing on her body, one over another, until she can barely move. It is early morning when they leave their apartment. Rain falls softly over the cobblestones as they walk through the silent streets of Amsterdam. The city she loves, the canals, the bicycles, the chatter of her friends, all fade behind her. They arrive at the rear of an old office building on the Prinsengracht. From the outside, it looks ordinary, like hundreds of others along the canal. But behind its walls lies the place that will become their entire world for the next 2 years. The building houses the offices of Otto Frank's company, Opekta, which once sold pectin for making jam. Up a narrow staircase, behind a movable bookcase built to conceal a doorway, is a small cluster of hidden rooms. The family calls it the Secret Annex. For now, it feels temporary, an emergency shelter. But it will soon become both their prison and their sanctuary. That first day, Anne looks around curiously. The ceilings are low, the walls bare. A single window faces a courtyard, its panes soon to be covered with blackout cloth. There is no sound from the outside except the distant hum of trams and the muffled footsteps of workers below. Anne sits on a narrow bed, opens her diary, and writes, "I hope I will be able to confide everything to you, Kitty, as I have never been able to confide in anyone before." In that moment, she cannot know that her words will one day speak for millions. She is only 13, afraid, but still curious, still alive with wonder. The diary lies open in her lap, its pages waiting to hold history, not through politics or battles, but through the eyes of a girl who simply wanted to live. As night falls, the Franks hear the church bells outside. The city continues, unaware that 8 souls will soon hide behind those walls. Anne closes her diary gently, presses it to her chest, and whispers, "Good night, Kitty." The lamplight fades, the secret annex begins its silence. The first morning inside the secret annex is quiet, too quiet. The air feels heavier here, as if sound itself has been muffled. Anne wakes to the creak of floorboards and the distant ticking of a clock somewhere below. For a few seconds she forgets where she is. Then she remembers. This is not a visit or an adventure. This is life now. The rooms are small and strangely shaped, with slanted ceilings and narrow windows covered in thick blackout cloth. There are 4 tiny rooms on 2 floors connected by steep stairways and a small attic above. Her father shows her how to open the bookcase that hides the entrance, a single hinge, perfectly fitted, leading back into darkness. It is both clever and frightening. When the bookcase swings shut, daylight disappears, and silence becomes law. The family unpacks what little they brought: blankets, clothes, tins of food, and, most precious of all, Anne's diary. They move cautiously, because below them, workers in the warehouse have already arrived. Every footstep echoes through the floor. During the day, they must not flush the toilet, must not whisper too loudly, must not move furniture. Anne writes, "We have to tiptoe and whisper during the day, otherwise the people in the warehouse might hear us." By evening, the rooms take on a faint warmth. The curtains are drawn, the lamps are covered with shades. The family eats soup made from potatoes and carrots. It is the first meal in their new world, a quiet supper filled with unease. 2 weeks later, new footsteps climb the hidden stairs. The Van Don family joins them, Herman, Auguste, and their teenage son, Peter. The rooms shrink further. Anne must now share space with 7 others, each with different fears, habits, and tempers. The air grows stale quickly, yet this small, stifling refuge is safer than the streets outside. Anne observes everything. In her diary she sketches the personalities of those around her, their quirks, their humor, their tensions. She notices how her mother tries to remain patient, how her father's calm voice prevents quarrels, how Mrs. Van Don complains when food runs low. She writes of Peter: shy, awkward, sometimes kind. To Anne he is first a stranger, later a friend, and eventually something softer, a small light in the long confinement. Days become measured not by calendars but by sounds. The church bells of the Westerkerk mark the hours. The factory whistles below signal work, break, and closing time. When evening falls and the workers leave, life in the annex begins again. They whisper, walk, stretch, breathe freely for a few short hours. Those hours become their real days. Sometimes Anne presses her face to the crack of the window covering. Outside she can glimpse a sliver of sky, the bare tops of trees, the outline of a chestnut that sways with the wind. She writes, "As long as this exists, this sunshine and this cloudless sky, and as long as I can enjoy it, how can I be sad?" Even in hiding, her heart clings to the world beyond. The helpers, Miep Gies, Jan Gies, Victor Kugler, Johannes Kleiman, and Bep Voskagel, risk their lives daily to keep the 8 souls alive. They bring bread, vegetables, paper, and sometimes news from the radio. Anne adores Miep, who speaks softly and never complains. She calls her their guardian angel in ordinary clothes. Through these small acts of courage, the outside world maintains a fragile connection to the hidden one. As the months stretch on, the monotony deepens. There is no privacy, no quiet corner. Anne writes whenever she can, at the table, on the floor, under the faint yellow light of a lamp. Writing becomes not only her pastime but her lifeline. She writes about her arguments with her mother, about the claustrophobic heat of summer, about hunger and fear. Yet she also writes about dreams: to go to Paris, to study art, to become a journalist or a famous writer. She refuses to let the walls define her imagination. One winter evening, planes roar overhead, and the annex trembles with the distant thunder of bombs. Anne covers her ears, her body shaking, but in her mind she transforms the fear into sentences. Later she writes, "When I write, I can shake off all my cares. My sorrow disappears, my spirits are revived." Writing gives her power over the chaos she cannot control. Outside, the persecution intensifies. Jews are rounded up daily, and the sound of boots on cobblestones becomes a symbol of dread. Anne and the others hear rumors through the radio. Deportations to the east, families who never return. They do not yet know the names of those places, Auschwitz, Sobibor, Bergen-Belsen, but the fear of them hangs like fog. Inside, the smallest noises can feel like betrayal. Once, a window slips open, and everyone freezes. Another time, a thief breaks into the warehouse at night, and the intruders above dare not move for hours. The line between safety and capture is thinner than breath. Still, there are moments of laughter. Anne jokes about the cooking disasters that come from rationing. She teases Peter, plays word games with her father, and imagines what dresses she will wear after the war. Her diary becomes both witness and friend, a mirror reflecting a childhood forced to grow up in silence. As the first year passes, the annex begins to feel like a world suspended outside of time. Seasons change only through the small square of window where the light shifts from gold to gray. Anne notices every detail. The way the air smells before rain, the flicker of candlelight on the wall, the rhythm of Margot's quiet reading. She records these fragments as if to preserve the sense of being alive. At night, when everyone sleeps, she listens to the city beyond the walls. Sometimes there is music from a distant radio, sometimes shouting, sometimes the cry of a child. She imagines those sounds as signals from another universe, one where freedom still exists. And she wonders what the world will think of her if she survives. "I want to go on living after my death," she writes one evening, her pencil moving quickly, as if time itself might run out. Those words will outlive her, carried across oceans and languages, long after the footsteps that echo below have faded. Winter settles over Amsterdam like a heavy blanket. The canals freeze at their edges, and the cold creeps through the walls of the secret annex. Inside, breath becomes visible in the morning air. Anne wraps herself in layers of sweaters, her fingers stiff as she writes. The days blur into one another. There are no calendars now, no bells of school, no sound of streets. Only the rhythm of whispers and the endless caution of people afraid to be heard. The silence in the annex is not peaceful, it is thick, fragile, always waiting to break. Every morning begins the same. At 6:30, they rise quietly. Before the warehouse workers arrive, they must finish washing, moving, and arranging the small breakfast. When the first footsteps sound below, conversation stops. For the next 10 hours, they live as shadows. No running water, no flushing toilets, no dropped spoon. Even laughter becomes dangerous. Anne writes that silence has a sound of its own. It presses against her ears until she feels she might scream. She writes, "I long to cry out because I cannot bear it. But I must not, I must not." In those hours, she feels the walls closing in, the air growing thinner, her thoughts restless and loud. To fight the monotony, the residents invent routines. They read the same books over and over. Otto Frank teaches his daughters lessons from old textbooks, while Mrs. Van Don complains about the small portions of food. Mr. Dussel, the dentist who later joins them, counts beans with the precision of a surgeon. Each person searches for a way to stay human within the quiet. Anne begins to see the adults not as figures of authority but as people stripped of pretense. Fear reveals them as they are, impatient, anxious, proud, sometimes kind. She observes them with a writer's eye, recording details no one else notices. How her mother smooths the tablecloth each night, how her father hums faintly when thinking, how Margot hides her loneliness behind a calm smile. In the evenings, when the warehouse closes and the danger lessens, the annex comes to life again. Candles are lit, and the smell of soup fills the rooms. Anne reads Shakespeare and Dickens by the dim light of a single bulb. Sometimes they play word games or listen to the BBC on the small radio hidden in a drawer. News of the outside world is their only connection to hope. The Allies are advancing, the radio says. Someday, the war will end. Yet the fear never fully lifts. When footsteps echo in the stairwell at night, hearts stop beating. A knock, a cough, even the meow of a stray cat outside can send terror through the annex. They live in constant anticipation of discovery. Anne writes, "I hear the approaching thunder that will destroy us too, yet I feel that when the suffering is over, peace and tranquility will return once more." It is the voice of a girl who refuses to let fear have the final word. But fear takes other shapes. There are quarrels about rationed food, about noise, about whose turn it is to wash dishes. Anne's sharp tongue often brings her into conflict with her mother. She records her anger but also her guilt, confessing that she wishes she could be gentler. Her diary becomes both mirror and confessional. Every emotion, from shame to joy, spills onto the page. Outside, the seasons change again. Spring sunlight filters faintly through the curtains, carrying the scent of rain. Anne leans close to the covered window and feels the warmth on her cheek. The chestnut tree in the courtyard bursts into blossom. It becomes her symbol of endurance, a living thing that grows even when it cannot be seen. She writes, "When I look up into the sky, I somehow feel that everything will change for the better, that this cruelty too shall end." Through her words, the annex becomes more than a hiding place. It becomes a map of the human heart under pressure. Every room holds its own story. The attic where Anne dreams of freedom, the kitchen table where hope is rationed alongside bread, the stairwell where secrets pass in whispers. One night, Anne sits awake long after the others have gone to bed. A storm rages outside, thunder rolling across the rooftops. She presses her face to the window pane and imagines herself walking freely along the canals, her reflection rippling in the water. In her mind, she writes entire stories, tales of courage and love, of a world reborn. She decides that her diary will not remain private forever. She wants it to become a book when the war ends. She gives it a title, The Secret Annex. Her father smiles when she tells him. He does not yet know that her dream will come true, but not in the way she hopes. The next morning, Anne begins rewriting earlier entries, editing her own life as if she already knows that history is listening. She changes details, polishes sentences, and reflects on what it means to grow up in confinement. She writes, "I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I feel the suffering of millions. Yet, when I look up at the sky, I feel that people's hearts can change." In those words, she becomes not only a diarist but a philosopher of hope. Her thoughts rise above the walls that imprison her body. Even in the depths of fear, Anne finds beauty in the smallest things. The play of light on the ceiling, the taste of bread after hunger, the kindness in her father's eyes. She turns observation into resilience. Her diary, once a birthday gift, becomes the vessel that carries her spirit through the storm. The silence remains, but it no longer owns her. Within that silence, she learns to listen to herself. She learns that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to speak despite it. And so, night after night, she writes. She writes to remember, to dream, to defy the walls around her. Each word becomes an act of freedom, a small rebellion written in pencil. The war rages on beyond the curtains. The city trembles, nations burn, armies move. But in one hidden room in Amsterdam, a 13-year-old girl keeps writing. Her voice, fragile but unbroken, travels across time, carrying with it the weight of silence, and the hope that one day, her words will be heard. By the summer of 1943, the Secret Annex has become a world of its own. Outside, the war grows louder. Inside, time moves differently, suspended between dread and routine. For Anne, the diary has become more than paper. It is her voice, her mirror, her witness. Every page begins with the same greeting, "Dear Kitty," as if she is writing to a living friend. Through these letters, she confides her secrets, her anger, her longings, her small triumphs. Kitty becomes both companion and sanctuary. Anne's handwriting changes as the months pass. The loops grow tighter, the lines more deliberate. Her words, once scattered with jokes and girlish complaints, deepen into reflections about humanity, faith, and injustice. She writes as though she is both participant and observer of her own life. "I can shake off everything if I write," she confesses. "My sorrow disappears, my courage is born." The diary listens without judgment. To Kitty, Anne tells the truths she cannot say aloud. She writes of her complicated feelings toward her mother, how she loves her, yet feels misunderstood. She writes of her father, whose patience she admires. And she writes of Peter, whose quiet presence begins to soften the loneliness that surrounds her. At first, Anne dismisses him as dull and awkward. But as months pass, they begin to talk, shyly, cautiously, in the dim attic. They share whispered thoughts about the outside world, about freedom, about what they will do when the war ends. Anne writes, "We talked about everything under the sun, and it was wonderful to discover how much we shared." For the first time, she feels understood by someone her own age. The attic becomes their secret refuge, a place where hope feels real again. There, in the half-dark, they watch the sunlight spill through the cracks and dream of a world beyond the walls. Anne begins to imagine a future, not just survival, but life. Still, guilt lingers. She wonders if it is right to think of love while others suffer. She scolds herself for wanting happiness when so many have none. Her heart is torn between the weight of her confinement and the pulse of youth that refuses to die. She writes, "I've found that there is always some beauty left, in nature, in love, in goodness. It all depends on how you look at it." Those lines, so simple, capture the essence of Anne's courage, the ability to see light where others see only darkness. The annex, however, grows tense. Food is scarcer than ever. The helpers risk everything to bring bread and potatoes, often watered down or moldy. Anne watches her mother give up portions so that Margot and she can eat. She begins to understand sacrifice in a way only hardship can teach. One day, air raid sirens echo across the city. Bombs fall so close that the walls tremble, dust drifting from the ceiling. In that chaos, Anne clutches her diary to her chest. Later, she writes, "I see the world being turned into a wilderness. I hear the ever-approaching thunder that will destroy us too. Yet when I look up at the sky, I somehow feel that everything will change for the better." Even as the ground shakes, her faith in humanity does not. Anne's letters to Kitty are filled with self-reflection. She writes of growing up, of confusion, of identity, of womanhood. In the confined silence of the annex, she begins to think deeply about who she is. She writes of her struggle between the cheerful girl everyone sees and the thoughtful young woman hidden inside. "I know exactly how I want to be," she writes, "but I am only partly that person." She also begins to reflect on her Jewish identity, not as a label of oppression, but as part of her inner strength. Who has made us Jews different from all other people? Who has allowed us to suffer so terribly up till now? It is God who has made us as we are, but it will be God too who will raise us up again. Her words reveal a maturity far beyond her years. While soldiers march and nations fight, she battles within herself, to hold on to compassion, to faith, to the belief that life still has meaning. Peter notices her growing confidence. He calls her a philosopher in disguise. Sometimes they sit together in silence, listening to the rain on the roof, not needing to speak. In that silence, Anne finds peace. It is the same silence that once suffocated her, now transformed into a quiet strength. But beneath her reflections lies the unspoken dread that every day could be their last. Anne begins to sense that her words might outlive her. She writes with urgency, as if racing against time. Each sentence is both a confession and a prayer, for understanding, for mercy, for remembrance. By the spring of 1944, news of the war's turning reaches them through the radio. The Allies have landed in Italy, whispers spread that Germany might fall. For the first time in years, laughter returns to the annex. They dream of walking freely in the sunlight, of eating fresh bread, of hearing music again. Anne writes, "Where there's hope, there's life. It fills us with fresh courage and makes us strong again." Still, the days remain uncertain. One wrong noise, one betrayal, could destroy them all. Anne senses it, a shadow that never leaves, even in moments of joy. Yet she keeps writing. Each letter to Kitty becomes an act of defiance. She does not fight with weapons or anger, but with words, and her belief that goodness must survive the war that tries to erase it. Through her letters, she keeps alive the most human part of herself, her capacity to love, to imagine, to forgive. She writes, "I think of all the beauty still left around me, and I am happy." Her words are not naive, they are brave. They come from a girl who has seen cruelty close enough to touch it, and who still chooses to see grace. As another night falls over Amsterdam, Anne closes her diary. The faint glow of the lamp reflects in her eyes. She listens to the city breathing beyond the curtains, to the distant toll of the church bell, to the silence between heartbeats. Then she whispers softly, "Good night, Kitty." Her voice is calm, certain, alive. And though she cannot know it, every word she has written will echo far beyond these walls, through time, through generations, through history itself. Spring arrives once more in Amsterdam. The air beyond the covered windows carries a different sound now. A faint hum of aircraft, distant explosions, the echo of change. For the first time in years, the residents of the Secret Annex feel something that resembles hope. The world outside is moving again. The Allies have landed in Normandy, and whispers of liberation float across the city like the scent of rain. Inside, Anne writes with renewed energy. She fills page after page with thoughts of what freedom might feel like. She imagines running through the streets again, smelling the sea, riding a bicycle along the canals. She dreams of seeing her friends, of sitting in a classroom, of hearing laughter without fear. Her sentences are filled with light, as though she is writing not from hiding, but from the edge of dawn. Yet even as hope returns, danger remains close. The air raids intensify. Every night, the city shakes with thunder from the sky. Anne listens, heart-pounding, as bombs fall nearby. Sometimes she writes by candlelight, her pen trembling slightly with each explosion. She records everything, not out of fear, but out of duty. She wants the world to know what it felt like to live unseen, to love unseen, to hope unseen. One evening, they hear a radio broadcast from London, the voice of the Dutch government in exile. It calls upon citizens to preserve written accounts of their experiences under German occupation. Anne's eyes widen. She turns to her father, her voice trembling with excitement. They want people to write diaries, she says. From that moment, she sees her words differently. What began as a secret friendship with Kitty becomes a mission. She begins to rewrite and polish her earlier entries, shaping them into a narrative for the world. She is no longer only writing for herself, she is writing for history. Her tone changes. The girl who once wrote of arguments and daydreams now writes with a voice full of insight and conviction. She reflects on war, on cruelty, on the nature of humanity itself. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world, she writes. It is a sentence that will travel farther than she ever could. But the days grow harder. Food supplies dwindle, and illness creeps through the rooms. They eat little more than beans and potatoes. Everyone's nerves are frayed, arguments flare up easily, then fade into silence. Anne watches the adults with a mixture of affection and sorrow. She writes, "We all live in such fear that one sound, one careless move, could ruin us. Still, I keep my faith. I must." Her friendship with Peter deepens. They spend long hours in the attic, whispering while the world outside burns. Anne confides to Kitty that Peter has become the one person she can truly talk to. She feels the confusing pull of affection and uncertainty, the awakening of love within confinement. But she also fears the illusion of it, that perhaps her heart is simply searching for something to hold on to in the dark. Their closeness brings her both comfort and reflection. She wonders if Peter understands her need to write, her hunger for meaning. She senses that her purpose lies not only in surviving, but in giving voice to what cannot be spoken. Each night, she writes until her fingers ache, pouring into words everything the walls cannot contain. Outside, the rhythm of the war changes again. Rumors of German defeat reach Amsterdam, carried by secret radios and whispers through the blacked-out streets. From their hiding place, they can hear church bells ring more often now, faint signs that life might be returning. Anne feels the excitement but also the fear that comes with it. Freedom could come tomorrow, or never at all. She begins to think deeply about the future. "I can feel the suffering of millions," she writes. "And yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think it will all come right, that this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again." Her faith is not blind. It is born of necessity, the kind that keeps a heart alive when everything else falls away. Her father notices the change in her. She speaks with more confidence now, more clarity. Otto Frank reads her pages quietly and senses that his daughter has become something extraordinary, a voice for her generation. He does not tell her this, but he saves her notebooks carefully, aware that they hold more than private thoughts. They hold truth. Then, one night, the outside world comes crashing closer. Thieves break into the warehouse below, searching for food or valuables. The sound of breaking glass and hurried footsteps sends terror through the annex. For hours, they do not move. They sit in the dark, hardly daring to breathe. When dawn comes, the silence feels heavier than before. Anne writes, "The world will keep on turning without me, and yet I cannot help feeling that I will make something of my life, even after it is over." Those words carry the weight of prophecy. As the summer of 1944 approaches, the residents begin to count days instead of months. The war could end at any moment, or last forever. The uncertainty gnaws at them more than fear itself. Anne writes every night as if it might be her last chance. She fills the final pages with questions rather than answers. Who has inflicted this pain upon us? Why do people treat each other this way? And still, I keep my ideals. Because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. It is perhaps the most famous line she ever wrote, not because it is naive, but because it is unbroken. In the middle of the darkest chapter of human history, a 15-year-old girl wrote that goodness still existed. And somehow, she made the world believe it again. As July turns to August, Anne senses a strange tension in the air. The sounds outside change, more soldiers, more movement. She feels something approaching, though she cannot name it. The chestnut tree outside the window is full now, its leaves whispering in the summer wind. Anne presses her hand to the glass and smiles faintly. I want to be useful or bring enjoyment to all people, even those I have never met, she writes. I want to go on living, even after my death. The next time she closes her diary, it will be for the last time. It is the morning of August the 4th, 1944. The city outside stirs with the noise of bicycles, wagons, and boots. Inside the secret annex, the air is still. Breakfast dishes lie half-washed in the sink, and Anne's diary rests open on the table. There is no warning, no time to hide, no final letter to Kitty. The first sound is a heavy knock. Then, footsteps, firm, purposeful, echoing up the wooden stairs. Voices follow, speaking in German. One of them shouts an order. The door bursts open. Armed officers flood the small rooms, their faces unreadable. Behind them are Dutch collaborators who had betrayed the hiding place. In seconds, the quiet world Anne knew collapses. Her father stands first, calm even now, his voice steady as he tells them they will come peacefully. Anne clutches her diary to her chest. For 2 years, her words have been her freedom. Now, even that will be taken. The soldiers order them to gather their belongings. They are allowed only small bags, the same rule that marked the beginning of so many other journeys from which people never returned. Anne moves quickly, but her hands tremble. Her mother whispers to her to stay calm, to breathe. Anne glances once toward the hidden bookcase that has protected them for so long. It stands open now, exposed, no longer a door between life and death, just a shelf filled with silent books. Downstairs, the helpers are also seized. Miep Gies and Bep Voskagel are not there that morning. Their absence will later save them. The others, Victor Kugler and Johannes Kleiman, are taken with the Franks and the Van Dons. In the confusion, Anne's diary and her notebooks are left behind, scattered across the floor. Pages covered in her looping handwriting flutter in the draft from the open window. The group is herded down the narrow staircase, past the office where Otto Frank once worked. Anne looks around as if trying to memorize every detail. The light on the desk, the smell of paper and dust, the faint ticking of the clock. She does not know that this will be the last time she ever sees sunlight through those windows. Outside, a gray truck waits. They are pushed inside and driven away through the familiar streets of Amsterdam. The canals, the trees, the rows of bicycles, everything she loved passes by like a dream fading too soon. She does not cry. She sits silently beside her father, her hands folded around the diary she was not allowed to keep. They are taken first to the Gestapo headquarters on the Uterpestraat, a building already haunted by the screams of others who came before them. There, they are questioned and searched. The guards take their possessions, including Anne's beloved fountain pen. Every trace of their hidden world, every comfort, every belonging, is stripped away in a single afternoon. By nightfall, they are transported again, this time to the Westerbork transit camp in the northeast of the Netherlands. To the guards, they are just another group of Jews in hiding, nothing more. But among them are 8 people who have lived for 2 years in the shadow of silence, bound together by fear and fragile hope. They arrive in Westerbork exhausted, confused, and still unable to believe that their long vigil is over. The camp is crowded, the air thick with smoke and despair. Rows of wooden barracks stretch across the mud. Loudspeakers call out names, lists, numbers. For Anne, it feels unreal, as if she has stepped into one of the nightmares she used to describe to Kitty. And yet, even here, life continues. She helps in the children's barracks, shares bread, and comforts others with her words. For several weeks, they remain in Westerbork. Anne continues to write whenever she can, this time on scraps of paper or in her mind when there is nothing to write on. She tells other prisoners stories about her time in the annex, about the chestnut tree, about Peter, about the helpers who risked everything. They listen, drawn to her optimism, her energy, her unshaken faith that things will get better. But on the 1st of September, 1944, a transport list is read aloud. The names of the 8 from the secret annex are among them. They are ordered to pack what little they have. Destination: Auschwitz. Anne does not know what Auschwitz is. No one in Westerbork truly does. They are told it is a labor camp, a place to work, perhaps to live. She tries to believe that. She clings to her father's calm expression and the way he squeezes her hand, once, firmly, as if to say, "I am here." At dawn, they are loaded onto a long train, each carriage packed with more than 70 people. The doors close. The air grows thick. For 3 days and nights, the train rattles eastward. The world outside is nothing but darkness and fields. Inside, the sound of weeping mixes with the clatter of wheels. Anne tries to imagine that the diary she left behind will survive, that perhaps Meep or someone else will find it. She pictures her words sitting quietly on that table, waiting. Somewhere deep inside, she believes that the pages will speak for her if she cannot. When the train finally stops, they are blinded by searchlights. Dogs bark, soldiers shout, smoke rises from tall chimneys in the distance. The air smells of ash. They have arrived at Auschwitz-Birkenau. The men are separated from the women. Otto Frank is torn from his wife and daughters in a matter of seconds. Anne clings to Margot, her older sister, as they are driven forward in a long line. Guards point, left or right, life or death decided in a gesture. Anne and Margot survive the first selection. They are sent to the women's camp. Their mother follows them, frail but still trying to appear strong. In the days that follow, Anne learns what Auschwitz truly is. The smell, the cold, the endless roll calls, the system built not to sustain life but to break it. She no longer has her diary, but she keeps her thoughts alive. She whispers them to Margot at night, sentences remembered and rewritten in the dark. Where there is hope, there is life. It fills us with courage and makes us strong again. Those words, fragile and human, are her last defense against the machinery of death. Autumn of 1944. The air in Auschwitz grows colder with each passing night. The camp is a landscape of smoke and mud, a place where the living move like shadows. Disease spreads through the barracks. The prisoners are bones wrapped in cloth, their faces gray, their eyes hollow. Anne and Margot cling to one another. Their mother, Edith Frank, grows weaker by the day, giving her food to her daughters until her strength fades completely. In early winter, she dies, quietly, in the cold. The sisters do not even have time to grieve. They are soon loaded onto another transport, a train filled with women whose eyes no longer hold fear, only exhaustion. The journey north is endless. Days blend into nights, the frost seeping into their bones. When the doors open again, the sign reads Bergen-Belsen. The camp lies in northern Germany, surrounded by woods and wire. It is not a killing camp, yet death is everywhere, in the hunger, in the disease, in the despair that seeps into the air itself. The conditions are unbearable. There are no proper shelters, no food except for thin soup and a crust of bread. Typhus spreads through the overcrowded barracks. Every breath carries infection. Anne and Margot sleep pressed together for warmth, whispering to each other in the dark, remembering the sound of church bells, the chestnut tree, and the words they once wrote in a secret attic. Anne's spirit flickers but does not go out. She comforts others, shares what little food she has, and tries to keep hope alive even when her own strength is failing. Prisoners remember her speaking softly about the future, that the war would end, that they would see sunlight again, that peace would return. They called her, the girl with the quiet courage, but courage cannot stop the fever. By February 1945, both sisters are gravely ill. Margot is the first to collapse. Anne lies beside her, weak, delirious, still whispering fragments of sentences, perhaps imagining herself writing once more. When Margot dies, Anne has no tears left to cry. Within days, she follows her sister into silence. She is 15 years old. Only a few weeks later, British troops liberate the camp. The war, which had swallowed millions, is nearly over. But for Anne and Margot, liberation comes too late. In the spring of 1945, Otto Frank steps off a train in the Netherlands. He is thin, gray, and alone. He has survived Auschwitz, but he carries the silence of those who did not. He begins searching for his family, moving from camp to camp, list to list. Everywhere he hears the same words: they were sent east. Then, one day, confirmation arrives. Margot and Anne are gone. He reads their names on a Red Cross document, the ink still fresh. For days he cannot speak. The world, once filled with his daughter's laughter, feels empty. Yet in that silence, something waits for him. Miep Gies, the woman who had risked her life to help them, visits him with a small bundle wrapped in brown paper. Inside are Anne's notebooks, the pages she left behind on the day of their arrest. Miep had found them scattered on the floor of the annex and had kept them safe, hoping to return them one day. Now, trembling, she places them in his hands. "Here's your daughter's legacy," she says softly. Otto opens the diary. The pages smell faintly of dust and time. He begins to read. At first, the words are too painful, the laughter, the arguments, the dreams. But soon he feels her presence in every line. He discovers thoughts he never knew she had, wisdom far beyond her years, courage he had not fully seen while she was alive. It is as if she is speaking directly to him from across the void. He reads the line, "I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are really good at heart." He stops, unable to move for a long time. He knows then what he must do. In 1947, 2 years after the war ends, Otto arranges for Anne's diary to be published. He edits it carefully, preserving her voice, her humor, her truth. He titles it, The Diary of a Young Girl. The book appears first in Dutch, then in French, German, English. It spreads across the world like a whisper of humanity rising from the ruins. Readers everywhere recognize themselves in her, the longing for freedom, the fear, the courage to believe in goodness. Her words cross borders faster than any army ever could. In time, schools begin to teach her story. Plays and films are made. Her face, the smiling girl with dark eyes in a diary, becomes one of the most recognized symbols of the 20th century. But beyond the fame lies something quieter, something eternal. A voice that reminds the world of what it means to be human. Otto Frank dedicates the rest of his life to sharing his daughter's message. He visits schools, speaks with survivors, and answers thousands of letters from readers moved by her words. When he is asked what Anne would have wanted, he says, "She would have wanted us to understand each other, not as nations, not as races, but as people." The Secret Annex in Amsterdam is eventually turned into a museum. Visitors walk through the narrow rooms, past the movable bookcase, the slanted walls, the small desk where Anne once wrote. On that desk lies a copy of her diary, open to the first page. "I hope I will be able to confide everything to you, Kitty." The tree she loved still stands outside, its branches stretching toward the sky. Each spring it blooms again, carrying her memory in its leaves. Anne Frank never saw peace return to her city. She never walked again by the canals or felt the wind in her hair. But her words outlived the war that tried to erase her. They became part of the conscience of the world, proof that even one small voice, written in pencil on ordinary paper, can reach across generations. Through her diary, she continues to speak. She reminds us that dignity cannot be destroyed by hatred, that courage can exist even in silence, and that hope is the most defiant act of all. Anne once wrote, "I want to go on living, even after my death." And she did. Her voice still whispers in classrooms, in museums, in the hearts of those who read her story. It whispers of the fragility of freedom, the danger of indifference, and the strength found in compassion. In the stillness of that hidden annex, amid fear and hunger, a young girl wrote not of despair, but of belief. And because she did, the world remembers, not only her, but all those whose names were never written down.